Does Donald Trump plan to make concessions to Putin, and how will NATO react to Russia's involvement of third parties in the Russian-Ukrainian war? This and other topics we will discuss right now. My name is Iryna Uzlova, and we are happy to see today with us Yuriy Rashkin, host of YouTube channel Rashkin Report, communication instructor at the University of Wisconsin, and a county supervisor in Rock County, Wisconsin. Yuriy, hello, glad to see you. Thank you for joining us.
Iryna, it's my pleasure. Thank you for inviting me. I'm very excited that my channel has finally crossed 100,000 subscribers. So it feels like a real thing now. So let's get to things.
And dear our viewers, you can subscribe to Yuriy channels, and you can find a link to this channel near this video. Recommend it and wish you, Yuriy, good luck in this deal and in progress of your YouTube channel. So Trump's peace proposal for Ukraine, freezing war, pressure on Putin, excluded NATO membership. Yuriy, what do you think of this new variant of Trump's plan, and does he mean capitulation to Putin?
I think that we're watching Donald Trump and the election campaign on the inside, kind of seeing what's going on the inside of the United States, and hearing a little bit about what the plans might be for outside of the United States. But we as voters really are paying more attention to what's going on internally. And we see that Donald Trump gathers his supporters in Madison Square Garden, which really on some level is not too different from other rallies that he's held, but it's in New York City. It's more visible. It brings a lot of attention. And it shows what a radical worldview Donald Trump presents. Honestly, I'm very encouraged by this statistic that I saw that says that 8% of people who think that Trump is fascist are planning on voting for him. On some level, you can say that that's very low. On the other hand, that's troubling in itself, that 8% of people are willing to do this. But when we look at Trump's attempts at foreign policy, and we remember what was the Trump administration record during the 4 years that they were in the White House, we know that we can expect great relations with Vladimir Putin, great relations with Kim Jong-un, great relations with any dictator with whom Trump can first try to start a fight and then make love, peace, and also arguments with our biggest competitors and enemies, which during Trump administration were other democracies. So like, France and all the other, those terrible countries that United States always used to be friends and allies with. But under Trump administration, it turned out that that's not necessarily a solution. So there's a lot of already, I would say, credibility gap on what the Trump administration candidacy campaign candidate is offering and what they had delivered in the past. And when they talk about what they're planning on delivering in the future, it looks, to put it mildly, unrealistic. This is not a solution that is going to work for anybody except for Vladimir Putin, because we know that's the chances are Trump wouldn't be offering this if he and Elon Musk, which we know are all in constant communication with Vladimir Putin, had approval for this idea. So the idea of creating demilitarized zones or whatever else that they're talking about right now has no credibility, because first of all, as Secretary of State Antony Blinken has said, this would be a false peace, because a peace that does not produce security for Ukraine is going to be a false peace, because Russia is not going anywhere. And when any condition of this proposal that Trump is now floating out there means not including Ukraine in NATO, which is fundamentally what a lot of this seems to be about. And we see that Putin has lost already by having Sweden and Finland join NATO, as was not the case before Putin invaded Ukraine. This part of this immediately makes this, I think, an unworkable scenario for Ukraine, because it seems like it is a desire of Ukrainian people to be part of the West and to join NATO. So when you have this agreement that is made behind Ukraine's back, would be in this situation by Trump administration, where it proposes certain things, and if Ukraine says that no, this is not a proposal that works for Ukraine, then Trump, the president, Trump administration can say, well, we tried. I guess those Ukrainians, just whatever you give them, like Putin said, it's never going to be enough. So we might as well stop now. And therefore, any proposal by Trump has to be taken in the context of what has occurred, what's likely to occur. And after looking at it, I don't know how we can take it even seriously.
Ukrainian journalist and TV presenter Vitaly Portnikov claims that the world of Donald Trump and his advisors has nothing in common with the world of reality. And so, Yuri, how do you think, what will Trump do if he realizes that Putin's speaks from the bell towers of the Kremlin at all his proposals and threats, when Trump realizes that for Putin he is only like a tool for chaos and destabilization of the world order, that Putin needs Trump to break the relations of the United States and Europe and create conditions for continuation his cruel war?
I think Vitaly Portnikov is absolutely right when he speaks about Donald Trump and the difference between Trump and Kamala Harris, in a sense that one of them stands for values. And Kamala Harris is very much a values-driven campaign, and it's important to, I think it's a very clear way to distill the differences between the campaigns, because we see that with Donald Trump, information can change, and the only value is loyalty to Donald Trump. Everything else is up for grabs and can change at any point, and then we see J.D. Vance trying to spin it in any different direction. But with, let's say, we're imagining the situation that Trump is elected and becomes president, the chances of him getting upset at Vladimir Putin and realizing that he's being used. Well, Trump is being used all of his life by everyone around him, and this seems to be not a problem for him. I mean, look at Mrs. Trump. That seems like a using kind of a relationship, and Trump doesn't really necessarily have much of a problem with it, especially even if she shows up at a rally once in a while. So being used is nothing new for Trump. He looks at a world as a transactional relationship, so this only reaffirms how useful he is to Vladimir Putin, because Vladimir Putin still has a use for him, for Donald Trump. So I don't think this is going to be a conflict situation at all. And as Kamala Harris showed during the debate, it's quite easy to say something and just plain break Donald Trump's brain. You can mention something about his rally sizes and it makes him nervous. You can tell him that his enemies are scheming against him and it makes him nervous. And if you make him nervous and scared, then, as you know, it's easy to control people that are nervous and scared.
Maybe Trump's and his administration future or today's advisors, they have plan B?
I think that is a hope that there is. Unfortunately, plan B in our situation is J.D. Vance. And that is not necessarily a plan B that works for those who care about future of Ukraine or world order or law and order or any of the things like institutions, democracy, et cetera, because Donald Trump is rapidly aging and declining. Unlike Joe Biden, whose body gave out first, in Donald Trump's case, we see that his brain gave out first. And his body is not going to be far behind, which means that the chances that in the next 4 years, J.D. Vance can become a president of the United States if he's vice president are quite good. And for a second, we might even be relieved, but it's only going to be a second because we know that J.D. Vance is under pretty tight control. He is a pawn. He is the one who is being used, which makes him perfect for Trumpism universe, that he's being used pushing agenda of very extreme characters, from interested in authoritarian control, and that's That's plan B. So plan B, where plan A is Trump, is a very worrying universe, and I don't know if planet Mars is far enough to protect us, to protect us from these J.D. Vances and Donald Trumps of the world. As far as adults in the room, that used to be hope case years ago, but those people have left the room. Adults have left the room. Adults have written books. We now have 2 4-star generals who are saying that Trump is fascist, and that's I don't know how you can be more clear than that. And it's important for Americans that it's 4-star Marine general and another 4-star general that talk about it, General Milley, General Kelly, both retired, because these are the people whose job it is to fight fascism. This is not like a doctor saying this is fascism. This is a military professional, highly respected, decorated veterans who say that Trump is fascist. Is it going to make a difference? Is it going to persuade people? It's hard to tell, but certainty is that if he comes to power, there will be no adults in the room. Trump is already surrounded himself with people who have terrible reputation, and now that his main ideologue is supposed to be coming out of jail any day, whose name I don't even want to mention, that it seems like the crowd around Trump is only getting darker, scarier, more menacing, in really are a huge advertisement for Kamala Harris.
Advisor to the head of the presidential office of Ukraine, Mikhailo Podolyak, stated that talking about all negotiations, different kinds of negotiations with Russia aggressor Vladimir Putin, now is nonsense. But in that plan, Trump's plan, which reported by Financial Times, which we discuss right now, Trump's concept revised the Minsk agreements from 2014 and 2015, which failed to stop hostilities in eastern Ukraine that time. So why do you need such a war freeze, really? And
yes. Remind me your question, please.
Yes, how can we talk, how somebody in this world can talk to Putin, to aggressor, to killer, because in our presidential office, representatives of it say that it's nonsense to talk to Putin, and it seems to me that it's nonsense. Understand that your position is near the same.
It is nonsense to talk to Putin, but at the same time, I can understand Ukrainian diplomats who will say that no matter who comes to power in America, we have to find a way to communicate with them. And that's a legitimate goal, but at the same time, as President Zelensky's visit to U.S. showed, you have to tread very carefully during our elections. And all of these things are highlighting that we are going to be in a different world after really next Tuesday when election is complete in the United States, because we're at this election season right now that's going to be finished on November 5th. And at that point, if it becomes, for instance, very clear very quickly that Trump lost, then we are going to be in a universe where Trump is going to be struggling, Trump is going to be arguing, but it's going to be pretty clear to most reasonable people that we're looking at 4 years of Kamala Harris administration, possibly 8 years. And now Russia is looking at a very different future where sitting at a negotiation table with Ukraine becomes something that is at least like, well, you have to consider that, because otherwise you're stuck in this war for what, 4 more years? Putin might say that he's got, he will outlast anybody, but it is a serious test of his durability. On the other hand, if Trump is elected, then we're looking at a very different future and a very different agreements, a very different negotiations, and a very different world. So all of these negotiations, I think Putin's position might change and might have reason to change once Trump loses. Until Trump loses, Putin is definitely not going to change his point of view, and really talking about anything with him until his main protege in the West is out of the running is kind of useless to begin with.
Yuri, German Chancellor Olaf Scholz has expressed support for a political settlement of Russia's war against Ukraine and backed India's initiative to mediate in this process. According to Deutsche Welle, Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky reminded about India to talking to journalists of the Times of India. And Zelensky here, according to his words, India can stop Putin due to reloaded prices to Russian oil, gas, and something like this. Trump also, his advisors, talk about prices to Russian oil, gas, and about that American oil and gas can be cheaper, can be cleaner, and the first step by Trump would be like drill, baby, drill, and accent on cleaner and cheaper American oil and gas. Maybe this common point and maybe these pressure prices to oil, to gas, and Russian oil and gas can be really like a big pressure to Putin, and maybe will this work good?
Well, the United States is already I believe, the greatest exporter of oil, gas, one or the other or both, and we really are not relying on Russia. So this whole idea that the Russian impact is substantial is, to begin with, I think is a little overestimated. Although we always have politicians who like to talk about how United States is not capable. But the key there is that green economy is the future that we need to move towards. And this is the thing that Donald Trump has such a problem with. He went to a field of solar panels, and then he was saying that, those things, they can kill rabbits and bunnies. And if you care about wildlife, you should think about that. But realistically, green energy is the future. And that is one way that we can get rid of this gas station masquerading as a country, as late Senator McCain said about Russia, and put an end to this madness, both for the sake of our economy and for the sake of our planet. Because really, it's important to say that there's no bigger proponent and champion of fossil fuels than Russia. Because Russia is a frozen country up in the north that would really benefit from global warming. There would be some pathways that would open up in northern seas. This is a thing that if you talk to specialists in the field, which I have done on my channel, it amazes me to what extent Putin is actually pushing for global warming. This is his thing that he wants to do. So I think it's very important for us to understand that those things are not working. And when it comes to trying to find some kind of a common ground for future, let's say with Trump administration, and talk about, Ukraine is full of resources, that's unfortunately, I just don't think that Donald Trump is transactional, but he made a transaction with Vladimir Putin long time ago. And that has been, as far as Ukraine is concerned, Ukraine is included in the transaction that he's made with Donald Trump, made with Putin. We'll have more evidence later. Those that will never believe it will never believe it. But that's not the point. The final thing that I think is really important on this question is, what can Ukraine do? Because we are constantly discussing what can everybody else, what can India do, what can the United States do to do. And this is a very important conversation that we are having, and we need to have and continue to have, because there are sanctions. There's going to be new sanctions because there's going to be new companies that are going to try to work around existing sanctions. And so there will be need. This is a part of it doesn't mean that sanctions are not working. It just means there's going to be need for more. That's fine. But we need to also remember that we need to win on the elections, and we need to move away to green energy, and we need to think about what can Ukraine do, what is the responsibility, because we in the West are always thinking about what can we do more. But I think it is part of what makes West successful is to think about what can we do to improve our own situation, more actively dig into, because those are things we can't control. We can't control what France does. We can't control what anybody outside of our country. So on that level, I think that this is just all the more opportunity and need for Ukraine and people in Ukraine to move forward, to think about the opportunities that the wonderful people of. I've been to Ukraine. I met a lot of wonderful people, very talented people. And yes, you got to have Western weapons. But I feel that Ukraine's pathway to the future lies not just through allies, but it's also its own road that it is walking. And I think it's admirable and wonderful and deserves all sorts of encouragement and support.
Choose one options, please, Yuri. Putin will be for Trump, friend, enemy, or competitor?
Boss, curator. I believe there's a KGB expression, curator, because you see in KGB terms, I understand you never are allowed to say bad things about your curator. Like your person who leads you, who provides you with instructions. And we know that one thing Donald Trump has never been able to do is to say a bad word about Vladimir Putin. So I think, to me, that speaks of a very special relationship that those two men have. And yes, we have artificial intelligence that can draw us all sorts of crazy visuals, but reality, I'm afraid, is far worse. Donald Trump has been doing Vladimir Putin's bidding, is interested in doing Vladimir Putin's bidding because he wants to be friends and he wants to be admired by Vladimir Putin. This is a sad reality for the United States because on one hand, Trump is going to lose. I'm quite confident that Kamala Harris is going to win, and Trump right now is setting up a scenario where the only reason he lost is because it was stolen from him. No, it's because he offers politics that are losing politics on many levels. And being friends with Putin is not a way you win elections in the United States. Yes, there's a lot of people who go, Putin, this sounds interesting. I hear they're, whatever, white country. By the way, Ukraine is far more white than Russia for those that care about those sorts of things. But we just need to persevere because in the end, Kamala Harris is saying that she is going to make sure and ensure that Ukraine prevails. And I think that when she wins, she's going to be accountable to us, the voters, for what she has said. And we're going to expect her to fulfill her promises versus Donald Trump, who promises to his electorate that he's going to stop all aid to Ukraine. And if he doesn't say it, J.D. Vance says it. And if Trump is elected, he's going to have to show to his voters that he didn't just say that as part of his pre-election strategy. He's going to have to do it, and chances are, all indications are that he will. So I guess, just to summarize it, Donald Trump has a list of enemies, and Kamala Harris has a to-do list, and Ukraine's victory is on that list.
We will hope that situation will be very good for us and for democracy in the whole world too, because all these are puzzle of one situation. NATO announces...
It is, and I just want to highlight the size of coalition that Kamala Harris has, because she is supported in the political realm from far left to far right, which means, what does it tell you about Mr. Trump's support? But because Liz Cheney is considered to be as far right, and Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez is considered as far left, as mainstream. Well, I don't know, whatever. But either way, Bernie Sanders, I don't know, how far do we want to go? But they're all against Trump. And so I think the coalition is quite large. Please continue.
About another coalitions, bad coalitions for us, Russia and North Korea. NATO announces North Korea's participation in Russia's war against Ukraine. NATO allies will continue to assist Ukraine. The involvement of North Korea's troops will only increase losses among the Russian military. NATO Secretary General says Mark Rutte. He says also that North Korean troops are involved in the Kursk region, that they are already there, which in itself indicates a significant escalation of the war. Does the fact that Russia is asking North Korea for help demonstrate the weakness of Putin's regime and Russia's military might, and how should NATO and the USA react to it?
I can only say that until elections occur and end, there will be a great reluctance from a current administration to do anything major, because at this point, influencing elections can occur from inside or outside, and we're at a very close stage where if suddenly, I don't know, director of FBI announced that he was reopening an investigation against the candidate, it might play a very strong role in the election outcome. And so we're seeing lack of desire from any responsible person right now to create much excitement, which doesn't describe Congressman Turner, for instance, who said that administration needs to consider using, I believe, direct force if it is proven that North Koreans are in Ukraine. Well, if North Koreans are in Ukraine, there's a couple of options for that. First of all, if they're there as cannon fodder and there's 2,000 or 3,000 of them, well, Ukraine, according to the Admiral Kirby, destroys 12 to 1,500 Russian troops per day. That means that 2,000 North Koreans aren't going to last there very long. If they're going to be there because of a language barrier, they're going to be separated from everybody else, and they're going to be doing guarding things. Well, that's not a terrible threat at this point. And or if they're going to be like slave labor and they're going to be building something and digging trenches, well, I guess that Russians can't even do that anymore. So it highlights, the shortages that Russia has, and the desperation that it is in, that and a new level of partnership, and to the level which I just got to tell you, this whole experience with Biden administration, for me, as somebody who pays attention to American politics for several decades, has just been amazing in terms of the transparency with which they operate. They show what they know, and that forces everybody else to respond. They showed that they knew about impending Russian invasion of Ukraine, and it disabled all the fakes that Russia put out about how this was all, the provocation things that they were doing. And in this instance, they say the information that we have is that there's 1 million North Koreans in Ukraine. No, this is just the beginning. But everybody's on record, including China, which might say, oh, we had no idea. We didn't know anything about this. Iran was saying that they didn't know anything about that impending terrorist attack on October 7th. It turned out that they knew. But now officially China is on notice that the world knows that there's North Koreans in Russia. And how does China feel about this? This is China's turn to respond. So we shall see how that goes. But from the United States, the point of view of what I'm hearing so far is that there's a great awareness. There's a very precise awareness of what's going on. There isn't any particular new concern, but we also see that there's a surge, which is a word I remember since the Iraq War a couple of decades ago. That word surge, when we decided to really flood and increase our troop level in Iraq to defeat the insurgency. Those that are old enough may remember some of those events of years past. And so when Pentagon announces that there's going to be a surge, I find that to be a very hopeful statement if you wish Ukraine well, and a dreadful statement if you're North Korean, thinking that you're now going to do well on Ukraine's battlefields.
Yuriy, thank you so much for your thoughts, for your clarifications, and for your time. I suppose that we'll see you next week. Take care of yourself. Goodbye.
Always a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. It was Yuriy Rashkin. It was me, Iryna Uzlova. Thank you for viewing. See you later. Bye.